Thank you for joining us today for this Reframing Retirement event and today's topic, Making Retirement a Reality, presented by the Ent Credit Union Community Education Team. We want to thank the Pikes Peak Area Agency on Aging and Ent Credit Union for collaborating on this series. Before we begin, we ask that you please keep your microphones muted. You can use the chat area to let us know when you have a question. You can also rename your profile so we can accurately call out the correct person during questions and for our door prizes. You can do this by hovering over the participant bottom at the bottom to open the participant panel, and then hover over the profile you're in, represented by the word me next to it, and then hover over the name, and then click the three dots to the right and select rename. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Pamela Hogard from the Pikes Peak Area Agency on Aging. Pamela, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jared. Well, folks, I hope you all have sunshine in your pockets this afternoon. We've got a sunshiny day here in Colorado Springs. I'm loving it. Thank you all for coming. This is our seventh module tonight, and we're very excited for our presentation by the Ent team. So I'm Pamela, and most of you know I represent the Area Agency on Aging. And we hope that you enjoy this afternoon's presentation on making retirement a reality. Your Ent team for this presentation will be Laura Straub, Katie Griffin, and Emma Propsick, as well as Bree Shalito, who will be the host for the Ent team. The Area Agency on Aging, most of you know about the Area Agency on Aging. We provide resources, educational programs, and services for the older adult population, which makes us a nice fit for Ent Credit Union and this team there, because the community education team does the same thing, only for a little bit different demographic. In addition, we publish two well-known publications, the Senior Information and Assistance Guide, the good old yellow book. We've been the oldest in the community. We've been around the longest, and we're the best there is. We do also publish the Veterans Benefit and Medicaid Guide. Last but not least is the Medicare Insurance Counseling Program that we offer through the State Health Insurance Program. It's fondly known as SHIP, where we offer unbiased information on Medicare and health insurance. So some of you know, if you've tuned in before, that we've done a little remodeling on the retirement series to reflect what we're hoping is a more accurate representation of longevity, which basically the definition of longevity is living a longer and healthier life. So when you think about it, as you reflect on retirement, it's obvious that in retirement, which has simply been the end of the doing part of work, whatever that's been for people, rather than the focus being the individual doing the work. So that's what Reframing Retirement series is changing the focus from doing to being. Many older adults are working, past the age of 65 and continuing to work well into their 70s and even the 80s. So the trend is expected to continue, and Susie Orman, who is a financial assistant, not assistant, but expert, says that 70 is the new retirement age. So if we take a brief look at life expectancy, research shows that the current life expectancy is now just under the age of 80. Well, go figure. So back in the 30s, it was 65, so you can tell the difference, right? So you can easily see that we now have an additional 20, 30 years to create a new life with meaning and purpose. I find it interesting to note that there's a Japanese word that is called ikigai, and it's a concept that combines ikigai, meaning alive or life, and gai, meaning benefit or worth. When combined, these terms mean that which gives your life worth, meaning, or purpose. So that's what this series is all about, helping you to step into those next years of your life and making them the best that you possibly can. Longevity is the new mindset. So these 8 modules have been focusing on that, assisting ways to help you with your life and care for your well-being in the next 20 to 30 years, whether it's financial or medical or whatever. So that takes me to our current topic presented by Ent Credit Union's community education team. I might just say that their overall mission is to improve the financial lives of its members. They are responsible for developing and implementing strategic and innovative projects that educate and support the Colorado community through programs, activities, presentations, and events. And see how similar that is to the Area Agency on Aging? So this team is going to explore options for you today and help you identify priorities to take a look at how much money you might want to be saving to create that future for yourself. And you'll be introduced to some financial and budgetary options that you can consider when making that planning. So there are some handouts that might be advantageous if you wanted to download those to go with your presentation today. And the PowerPoint presentation will be emailed after today's recording. So let me introduce to you Bree Shalito, Senior Manager of Community Impact. Please join me in welcoming Bree. It's all yours, Bree.
Thank you so much, Pamela. It's been a true pleasure to partner with the Pikes Peak Area Agency on Aging for the last 9 years. We're looking forward to our 10th, so please come back and join us next year. But overall, as Pamela said, really it's just looking at what those years are going to look like for you. And I can never help but quote Dolly Parton, because she says, never get too busy making a living that you forget to make a life. And that's what a bulk of these are about as well, making sure that there's certainly a financial piece and we get caught up in the day-to-day, but there's so much more than financial when you leave work. There's the social aspect and so much more that I think folks don't really reflect on. So I'm so glad that you're here tonight to help us reflect on that and to look at that for yourself. As Pamela said, I work for Ent Credit Union. Ent is the largest credit union in Colorado. We're just under $10 billion in assets, and we've got 55 service centers to help you across the Front Range. In addition to what we do in community education, Ent's true mission is improving financial quality of life, which is why we partner with the Area Agency on Aging and do other classes for the community completely free to make sure that folks get this information and they feel like they have a choice in doing so. We also have a free financial coaching program that's available to members and non-members. So if you have a moment, take a look at our website. You're welcome to schedule an appointment with one of those coaches. We're glad you're here tonight, but this is so much more than we can provide in 1 to 1.5 hours for 8 weeks. We do have another session next week, so be sure to join us for that. But overall, thank you so much for being here. Ent is also pleased to offer a great benefit for being here at the end, so please do stay. You must be present to win. We've got a door prize of $50. That'll be an e-gift card of your choice. So wherever we can get a gift card to for $50, that'll be awarded to one winner here at the end. So usually I turn it back over to Pamela, but I think it might be best just to share here that I have some team members who are excited to provide this tonight. So if Pamela is okay with it. Pamela, did you have something? Perfect. We'll just move forward. I'm going to turn it over to Laura Straub. She's going to lead this, and we will have some information to share today on this presentation. Thanks so much.
Yes, thank you, Bree. All right. So as Pamela mentioned, there are some resources to go along with our presentation. So if you all would like to take a moment here to get those out. We can also have you all follow along as well in our Mentimeter. So if you would like to participate in the Mentimeter, you can go ahead and get logged in here. It'll just show up on your personal device or wherever you log into that menti.com with that passcode. It is completely optional. Don't worry if you don't want to. Just, again, follow along with those resources, or at the least have a pen and paper handy to do some calculations and worksheets. All right, I'll just give it just a moment here for folks who do want to get into the Mentimeter to get in there. Okay, see some thumbs up, so a few of y'all are getting in there. Awesome. Like I said, it's totally optional, but at least have your resources available for you as we go throughout the presentation. All right, so let's dive into making retirement a reality. What do we mean by that? First off, what we want you to take away today is your retirement vision. So what do you see yourself in retirement? Do you see yourself cruising or staying low and chilling out? Whatever that may look like for you, we want you to think about it. We want you to budget into these categories that we'll dive into here in a little bit, and then how much you should be saving now for that future lifestyle. So with that, most people don't know or think about with retirement is what lifestyle they want. So tonight, as you're going through this, kind of have that picture in mind. Like I said, are you going to be the folks that go on cruises or traveling? or just simply hanging out at home with their grandkids or whatever it may look like? Or are you going to be into those pickleball like a lot of folks are nowadays? I already got into that craze, so I imagine myself keeping with it. And then we want you to be sure that you're saving enough for that desired lifestyle that you're picturing for yourself for retirement. And at what age you can start to afford to retire. Now, when you're picturing it, are you traveling the world? Are you pursuing that passion? Or are you living that simple life? Or settling into a new city? Are you moving? So again, take a little moment to envision that for yourself. Just picture it. What does that look like for you all? Hopefully you're getting some good pictures of what you're envisioning your lifestyle to be here in the future. Now, today's simulation, we're going to go through a worksheet. So you should have a worksheet like this, a lifestyle worksheet. If not, a pen and paper will work too. But if you can follow along with that, it should be editable too if you're doing it on a computer or a device. Or if you printed it out, you can do pen and paper, however it may look like. Now, in the simulation, it's broken into these 7 different categories, which my fabulous co-host will help explain throughout the presentation. And then as you're going through it, like ask questions and share your ideas. Now, with this worksheet, as you see, there's percentages. They do not need to add up to 100. Do not do math while you're going through this. Just simply think about that category and the percentage of that category as we go through it. Again, we don't want it to add up to 100 at the bottom. We will go through how that calculation at the bottom works. Oh, sorry. So with that, I am going to pass it off to Katie to go over our first category.
All right, so the first category that we have is going to be food and clothing. So 2 areas that we want to consider with this section. And I'll just go ahead and preface that, food, the money that we're spending on food, that is going to weigh a little bit heavier than what we're spending on clothing. But let's go through each of these individually. So before you don't write anything on your sheet just yet. So first we're just going to kind of talk through these categories and then give you a moment to think of what your percentage might be. And what we're trying to think about is with these different percentages is how much of our budget are we spending on each of these areas. And so with food, some things that you want to consider is, do you like to cook at home, or are you someone that likes to go out to eat a lot? And if you do like to go out to eat, how expensive are your tastes? Do you like to try lots of different restaurants that might be a little on the pricey side, or are you good with, keeping it low key, maybe checking out like some different food trucks or different options like that? Or do you like to cook at home? Do you like to, like meal prep, like buy some things that you can like make multiple meals out of throughout the week and save some money that way? Are you somebody that likes to host dinner parties? Do you see yourself like having lots of like your friends over and having dinner parties during your retirement years? But so different things to kind of think about it when it comes to food, because that can turn into a good chunk of our budget. Especially now, food prices are not cheap, right? So definitely something that we want to factor into our budget. And then the other side of that is going to be clothing. So most retirees are spending less money on clothing during these retirement years because we're not working, so we don't have to buy like new work clothes every year. But I know some of my coworkers are really into buying new clothes and stuff like that. Personally, I get all of my stuff off of Amazon, and about once a year, I will purchase a couple of new things. So just where are you, kind of with that, and with these different things, like think about what you currently do, like what are your current habits when it comes to cooking or eating out or buying new clothes, because there's a good chance that those habits could continue in your retirement years. So there's, you may want to make some changes during those retirement years, but consider what those habits are now and if you think that they will continue. So on your sheet, you'll have two columns. One is the national average column, and then one is a column for your number. So on the national average column, under food and clothing, I'm going to have you write 18%. That is the national average on how much retirees are spending in this category. But then we have to think about, okay, what do you think your number is going to be? Now, that below average is going to be more towards 12% of your budget is going towards this category. And this is somebody that might not ever eat out. They have really inexpensive taste. Might be kind of like me where they buy clothes once a year, just as needed, aren't really into shopping too much. The average around 18%, that is eating out sometimes, kind of average taste, buying new clothes a little more often. And then above average is going to go up to 25% of our budget. And that is looking like more expensive food taste, eating out quite a bit more often. And then just really being into purchasing like some new clothes on a more regular basis. It might have a little more expensive taste in those clothes as well. Now, something I want you to keep in mind is that when you're figuring out what your number is, it doesn't have to be like exactly 12, 18, or 25. So if you feel like you're somewhere in the middle between below average and average, you could put down 14% for your number or 20%. So it doesn't have to be those exact numbers, but just what do you think? Where do you think that you'll fall? Where do you envision yourself in those retirement years in this category? So I'll give you a moment to think of what your number is going to be, and you'll put that in your spreadsheets. And then Emma is going to go through the housing category for us.
All right. Thank you so much, Katie. So housing, again, is going to be one of those larger spending categories for some of us. This is really where thinking about that lifestyle comes into play. Are you thinking that you're going to buy an RV? Maybe you're going to sell your home, travel the country. That's going to be your living expenses. Maybe thinking of moving into a retirement community. Lots of options to think through here. So really start thinking about what your plan is for housing. So do you intend to continue living in the home that you currently are in? Another consideration to think about if you are thinking that you want to stay in your current home is the physical abilities. So as you are aging, as it does get more difficult to move around, maybe being in a 3-story, 5-bedroom home, if that's what you're currently in, might not make the most sense. You might want to downsize. So start thinking about those different things. Do you intend on moving to a completely new area? Really good idea to get an average housing cost for where you might be wanting to move. Will you still have a mortgage payment in retirement? And what are those other considerations with that? Also think about the size of the housing you would like, because this will tie into things like the utilities and the taxes that have to go into it. And then when we are looking at our housing category, again, for the below average, that's typically about 20%. So this could look like a small house. Maybe you are renting rather than owning. Maybe you have no mortgage payments or you are living with your family. The national average of what retired couples or individuals, are spending is going to be 32%. So that is what you are going to write down in that category. And then for anything above average, maybe you are living in a larger home. Maybe you do have higher mortgage payments. Maybe those higher utility costs are coming into play there. Also think about maybe you do have a dream of buying a vacation home. I know personally, I would love to have a cabin in the mountains, and that's where I would be spending most of my time in retirement. So start thinking about those. We'll give you all a couple seconds, and then we'll move on to the next category where you might fall. And then just a reminder again, you don't need to pick 40, 32, or 20%. Think about where you might fall into this range.
All right, so the next category we have for you is transportation. So a couple different things I want you to consider before deciding on your number. So with transportation, where you'll be living is going to impact this. So if you think that you'll be living in a big city, like if that's where you see yourself retiring, then there's a good chance that you could take advantage of different public transportation options. And then that would lower your transportation costs by being able to use that. Or perhaps it'll be somewhere where you can like walk around to or bike to, things like that. You could also find yourself living in a community that only like uses like golf carts. Like, for example, a friend of mine, her parents just retired to Bald Head Island out in the Outer Banks off North Carolina. And on Bald Head Island, cars are not allowed. Like you're not allowed to have a vehicle in that. So everybody like has a golf cart that they drive around, which those aren't the cheapest thing to purchase outright, but that would, lower that transportation cost as well, not having, a full vehicle. Or do you see yourself maybe getting like away from the city? You want to go out into the country or out into the mountains like Emma wants to do, and it might take a little bit longer to get to the grocery store. So you might need a more reliable form of transportation. Like you might need to have a vehicle so that you can get those errands done and things like that. And then also want to think about like what your travel plans might look like. So do you think that you'll be driving around a lot, like to help with the grandkids or, driving like to go visit family? But so the national average is going to be 17%. So that's what you'll write on that national average column under transportation. But where do you think you see yourself? So below average would be that one small to medium sized vehicle. You're just replacing it as needed, not going off to get a new car every couple years. You're not using it a whole lot, and this might be a situation where you are able to use that public transportation or ride a bicycle or walk around depending on where you're living. The average, that 17%, that would be either two small or one larger vehicle. So, maybe you need a larger vehicle because you're helping transport the grandkids around or, helping friends out, something like that. And then above average will be more closer to 25% of our budget. And that would be having two vehicles, might be a little more expensive to maintain. You're using these vehicles quite a bit, or perhaps there's somebody that likes to swap out that vehicle, get something a little bit newer every couple years. And also keep in mind that this does also include gas and insurance as part of the budget. So just take a moment, see where you picture yourself. I know for myself, personally, I would love to have my regular vehicle for getting around, but then also want one of those like camper vans, like the Mercedes camper van. That would be super sweet. But I would love to have that as like my second vehicle to be able to, go off on adventures and stuff. But that's going to be a little bit more to add to my budget, I know. So I might be closer to that above average side, but take a moment and decide what percentage of your budget you think that you will be spending on transportation, anywhere around between 10% and 25%. Again, the numbers don't have to be exact as you see on the screen, but anywhere in that range. Once you think of your number, Emma is going to get into the fun category of health and fitness.
All right. So for health and fitness, again, another very important category for us to consider. So we're looking at this category, think things like your insurance, medical services, any cost of drugs that you might need. And then with the health and fitness category, it is important to keep in mind, like most things, that health costs are predicted to increase as time goes on. It can be a little bit tricky to kind of think long term in this aspect, but what we can do is what we know now. So, of course, there are things completely out of our control, things like our insurances, services, drugs, any family medical history that we might have. There's things we can be doing now to maybe offset the cost of this category later down the line. So, really good to kind of just take a step back and think about your current health. Where are you at now? Do you have any medical conditions that you know would continue into your retirement years? And then also thinking about kind of current fitness levels, where are you at and kind of in that health scale? Another thing too, again, thinking about all those different health issues, bringing it back to the family history. So for me personally, my family on both sides does not have great medical history, unfortunately. So I know that for myself, I'm budgeting a little bit above that national average. It's just the world I live in. It's what I know and what we have to do with it. Other things to consider with our health and fitness is what that insurance is going to look like. Will you still be able to be on some sort of an employer, some sort of sponsored insurance plan? Are you going to be self-insured? Are you even retired military that can help offset the cost in this category as well? Another thing to consider when we're thinking about health and fitness, staying fit, staying active is very important in our retirement years, of course. Think about where you're going to be living. And again, maybe some of those activities that you're going to do. If you're staying in the beautiful state of Colorado, we have all hiking trails and you can be outside to get that fitness in. Moving somewhere where maybe that's not a possibility. Maybe you want to consider cost of maybe a gym membership or joining different walking clubs. So different things to consider there. So for retirees, typically anywhere from 7% to 15% will be spent on health and fitness categories. 10% is going to be that national average. So again, if you're on that lower end, maybe you do already have great health, you are pretty healthy. There's no major genetic issues you need to consider with it. Maybe you are retiring after the age of 65. Definitely costs can go up for health and for insurance if we're retiring before that 65, right? We won't have those employer sponsored plans. If you're somewhere in the average, you might have some minor health issues, but you might be moderately fit. Then above average, again, that would be me. So pre-existing conditions definitely come into play there. Just think about your current health and where you're at. Again, always great to keep in mind that with health cost, again, those are planned, like most things, to increase as time goes on. So give you all a few minutes before Katie gets us into our next spending category.
All right, so this is my favorite category. Very excited. This is super, super fun one. So we got leisure, travel, and entertainment. So dream big, right? Like, so what do you see yourself doing like for fun during your retirement years? So perhaps you might want to travel around the world. Maybe you want to be one of those folks that just like book cruises like back to back, and you're just like constantly like out on that big old boat, like traveling around. Or are you somebody that likes to keep things simple? You just want to hang out at home, do some gardening, have like some game nights with your friends. What does fun look like for you? And as I mentioned earlier in that food and clothing category, think about like what are your hobbies now? So like what are you doing now? And is this something that you want to continue doing during retirement years? Or perhaps there's some hobbies that you just feel like you don't have time to get into right now, but you're planning on getting into them during those years. What are those hobbies? How expensive are they? What do they look like? For example, when you're thinking about what they look like, think about that cost as well. So how expensive of a hobby is it? So for example, gardening is a much less expensive hobby than skiing is, right? So what are those things that you like to do for fun? Do you see yourself getting, like season passes to different sports teams? I know that the Broncos aren't, I'm sorry to bring this up. I know the Broncos aren't doing super great right now, but maybe you want to get some season tickets to go see them or the Avalanche or Rockies or anything fun like that. Or maybe you're not even planning on being in Colorado, right? You're planning on moving, somewhere else that feels like a vacation spot all the time to you. So think about where do you see yourself during those years, and what do you see yourself actually doing during that time? So the average is going to be 8%. So write 8% on that national average column. And then your number can range anywhere between that below average of 5% up to that above average of 15%. So below average is going to look like doing like local vacations, maybe some staycations, minimal entertainment, not going out to do a ton of stuff. Maybe keeping those like game nights at home rather than going out to spend a lot of money on movies or anything like that. Average is going to be some travel, right? So not traveling too far, but going to be maybe driving like to the next state over, or just driving to go visit some family. You might have some hobbies or things that you're interested in, but still keeping it pretty moderate. But above average, which 100% is going to be me. So above average is going to look like those like overseas travel. So those kind of bigger vacations and bigger trips, perhaps going out of the country, like once a year or something like that. That's where those like sporting ticket like events are going to come in, maybe getting into the theater, supporting the local arts. And I also, my hobby is snowboarding, and that is not a cheap hobby to have. And I plan on snowboarding like until I just can't anymore. So that's definitely going to go into my retirement years, is my plan as of now. So I know I'll be spending a bit more than the average for this particular category, but go ahead and take a moment to think about what you think your number is. Again, this is the fun one, it's a fun category. So enjoy doing this one. Think of what your number is. And then Emma is going to get into our next category of communications.
Thank you, Katie. So communication, I think this is one category many of us might have overlooked when we are thinking about our retirement. I know myself included, but communication, and especially that technology component to it, major part of our lives today, and most likely will continue to be into retirement. As we know, again, that technology piece, how communication works, is ever changing. So really good to be thinking about when we are focusing on communication. Again, thinking about how you're going to be spending your time. Maybe where are you even going to live? Are you going to be close to your family and friends where, maybe they're just a quick drive over? Or are you going to move somewhere far away, your dream spot? And maybe things like FaceTime or Zoom are going to be a very important thing for you to use. So with our communication, some really good things to keep in mind. Think about what type of cell phones and the plans that you currently have. What are you using now? Are you using your cell phone a lot? Are you a person that is going to maintain, and do you want the latest and greatest technology? Maybe you do want to, again, be able to have the best connectivity, the best video quality to be able to communicate with your friends and family. Also think about where you're going to live and the internet connectivity piece. So again, if you're like me and you want to be in the mountains, I know I'm going to probably pay a good amount to get that Wi-Fi there. So think about, again, all those different aspects. And then another thing to consider with that communication piece is the kind of cable and maybe even streaming services that you intend on using. So that's kind of part of this category in this example. So for our retirees, typically anywhere from 2% to 8% is spent on that communication piece. 5% is that national average that you'll write down in that column. You're maybe a little bit closer to the below average. Maybe you're okay, just a very basic cable package, 1 or 2 streaming services that'll keep you happy. Maybe you really don't care about having the latest iPhone as it comes out every year, where they add a new camera lens to it. Maybe you don't even need the internet. And then if you are more average, that would be, again, maybe a couple more streaming services, maybe a little bit more cable. Maybe you are getting those newer technology pieces here and there. And then if you're above average, again, maybe you are living far away. You need that connectivity piece. Maybe you do just want all the streaming services, and that's how you want to entertain yourself during retirement. Also might have different multiple devices that you're navigating. Maybe you have a tablet for one thing, maybe you have computers for something else, and then of course those cell phone pieces. So give you a second to think about where you might be spending in this communication category, and then Katie is going to wrap us up with our last category.
All right, so the last category that we have for you are gifts and donations. So got 2 different areas again here that we want to consider. So let's dive into the gifts one first. So when you're thinking about budgeting for gifts, you first ask yourself the question of, do you even exchange gifts? Is that something that you and your family currently do? Is that something that you want to be able to do in the future? Is that something that's important to you, to be able to provide gifts to family and friends for birthdays or holidays, whatever the occasion may be? Or are you a part of a family that likes to just like have a big dinner together or something and don't really exchange those gifts and presents? Are you maybe part of a larger family, hoping to have a lot of grandkids? You do want to, be that grandparent that gets all the presents for everybody, like around the holidays. Or do you have a smaller family? Like for myself, it's just my husband and I. We don't have any kids, so definitely not expecting to have any grandkids either. But we've got our cats, and they 100% do get Christmas presents every year. But those are going to be a little less expensive than buying gifts for people, of course. So we're not spending quite as much in that area of our budget, but something to think about, what size is your family, and is that something that you enjoy doing? Does that bring you joy? And on the donations side, so think about, are there certain organizations that you currently like to donate to, or plan to be able to do that in the future? And also keep in mind that if you're not able to give monetary donations, maybe during your retirement years, you would be able to donate your time, like going to volunteer or something like that. So it doesn't always have to be that monetary part. But again, what do you like to do now? What do you see yourself doing during those retirement years? The national average is going to be 5% for this category. So go ahead and write 5% down in that column. And that looks like, your average size family doing some gifts and some contributions to different organizations. Below average will be more towards 2% of our budget. That's probably more where I'm going to land, right? Smaller family, not a ton of gifts, really, maybe just a few, and some smaller contributions. And then above average will take us up to 15% of our budget. So that might be for someone that is part of that larger family that likes to do a lot of presents, depending on the occasion, and do have a lot of different organizations that you like to donate to. So 5% is the national average, and then take a moment to think about where you see yourself. Again, that below average is about 2%, up to above average of 15%. And as you take a moment to pick your number, there's one more category on your sheet. It says other, and it already has the national average of 5% filled in. Go ahead and put 5% for your category as well. And so the reason for that category is, these other 7 that we've gone through, these are the major categories that folks are spending their money on in retirement years. But of course, it's not going to cover 100% of everything. So that other category is kind of a catch-all to get any other like little things that these other 7 categories don't cover. So go ahead and put 5% in the other category for yourself as well. And then I'm going to hand things back over to Laura to tell us what we're going to do next with all these numbers that we have now.
Yes, thank you, ladies. You gave us a lot to think about when it comes to retirement and thinking about it in these kind of categories. So, yes, what do we do with all of those? So first and foremost, it's not an exact measurement. It's just a starting point for us. It's kind of laying that foundation for us to start thinking about retirement, putting the pieces in place. If you're like me and can't do addition in your head, take out your calculator because we're going to get into that. Unless you use that fancy like edible PDF there, it probably did the math for you. Did it skip the slide? I apologize. My brain is all over today. We'll get to the numbers in just a second. So what is this percentage that we're going to calculate, and what does it do for us? So it is calculating the amount of money that we'll need annually pre-retirement to sustain our lifestyle in retirement. Right now, advisors are suggesting that we're planning 70 to 80% of our pre-retirement annual earnings to maintain our current lifestyle in retirement. That seems like quite a big number, maybe for some of us, or maybe it may be smaller for some of us when we're thinking about retirement. So the reality, though, is right now we're spending about 60% of our pre-retirement earnings annually in retirement. So a little below what financial advisors are kind of recommending for us to plan for in the future. All right. So where we're getting our phones out here to calculate our numbers. So we're going to do this math to get us either that 60% or 70 to 80%, whatever our percentage is here now with the worksheet that y'all did. It's going to determine what percentage of our pre-retirement income we'll need to sustain that lifestyle in retirement. So you're going to take your number, so you're going to add your column up. So it could be like 15, 20, 30, whatever those numbers were, you're going to add them up, get that total there, and times it by 60, and then divide that by 100. So let me go to the next page. It'll show you a little example here for you all. So in this one, we have like 18, 35, 20%. So we got a total here of 110% that we're timesing by 60 and then dividing by 100 to get 66% of our pre-retirement income. So based on this individual's calculation, we would need that 66% of our pre-retirement income to sustain our lifestyle in retirement annually. So you'll add it up for however many years you think you'll be in retirement. So I'll give you guys just a moment to do that math here. Again, if you use the worksheet, it should have hopefully done that math for you, but just kind of give you a second here to kind of find your percentage for pre-retirement income. I know for me, when I did it, I was a little surprised at how much lower mine actually was. I thought I was going to be a little bit more, needing a little bit more than I thought when I first looked at this average. All right. Hopefully you guys got that number. Don't worry if you're not, you still have time to figure it out for yourself. The biggest thing is like, who's saving for retirement now? So we have this Census Bureau data of broken into when we were born to kind of show who's looking at retirement right now. So don't worry, you're not alone if you weren't thinking about how much you need to be saving for retirement, or you might be one of the fortunate ones that have thought about it, have been saving along the way. Wherever you are in this process, start now. Attending tonight and any of the programs that we've had in this sessions is such a great starting point to have our retirement kind of in the forefront of our brain for a little bit, to kind of plan for that future, see what we want to have our lifestyles be in retirement. Now, again, this is just showing wherever you are at, start saving for retirement now. It's never too late. You're not alone. And the reason we must start as soon as possible, wherever we're at, is because of the lovely thing of compounding interest, or just interest in general. So when we put our money away in retirement accounts, or just in high yield savings accounts, wherever it is that we're saving for the future, it will have this lovely compounding effect. So the longer we can keep money in there, the more it'll build upon itself. So that interest is building upon itself because the interest is now earning interest. It kind of does this lovely thing with math where we're getting more. So in this graph, we can see that when they put in 10,000 at these different age brackets, like person A was 25, when they put in 10,000, person B was 35, and person C was 45. We see the effects of that compounding in that blue number of like how much money was there by the time they were in retirement stages of life. And again, this is just because of the compounding interest. So pretty nifty thing. And this is based on that annual percentage yield of 8%. Okay, so in here, we talk about that 401k for retirement. So I just want to briefly talk to you all about some retirement options that are out there. So we have traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs, 401k, or even a 403b. If you're a government or state employee, you might have that instead of the 401k. Now, I'll talk about 401ks first. So it's an employer-sponsored account. So this is with your employment. You contribute to it either in a traditional fashion or Roth fashion, which we'll talk about that difference here in a moment. Employers may match up to a certain percentage of that. So if they do a 3% match, if you invest 6%, that's fabulous. That's extra money that they're putting in there for you by simply putting away 6% to the 401k or more. So definitely take advantage of that. If you're unsure if you have a matching with your employer, definitely talk with your HR representative or whoever may be handling those accounts for you through your employment office. Because that's a fabulous way to start retirement, is getting that employment match then. Now, we have traditional and Roth IRAs. So traditional IRAs are individual retirement accounts that we're contributing to pre-taxes. So it's coming from our paycheck before income tax is coming out of it and into an account. Now, when we draw from that account in retirement or after the age of 59 and a half or whatever that magic number is, it will then be taxed when we are taking money out of that account. So that's just something to be mindful of, is getting taxed when we're taking it out. Now, Roth IRAs, that is money in a retirement account that we're putting into after taxes have already been taken into consideration. So we already got our money from our employment, whatever, we got that income tax and all those other lovely taxes taken out with our paycheck, and we're using that money to then put into the IRA. So when we take it out after that 59 and a half year mark, it's not taxed at that point. So the difference between those is just simply that tax time, like when is it getting taxed? It's great to have both of them if you are able to, so you can have both of those advantages. Again, with any of these accounts, see if your employers right now have any sort of matching or a way to help set it up for you all if you don't have it, or simply sign up for them if you don't have these retirement accounts, because they are such a great utilization to help us save and plan for retirement. All right. With that, I will stop sharing my screen and we'll open it up to any questions or concerns, or just talking through our numbers. Maybe y'all were surprised by some of your percentages that you got and just want to talk about it. So the floor is open if anyone would like to talk about anything.
Before we open, Laura, do you mind if we do the giveaway real quick in case folks don't have
let's
questions?
do this giveaway.
Awesome. All right. So I think I've got everyone's names in here. Let me just share my screen so that everybody can see, so it's all fair. Also getting it out of the A to Z sort just to shuffle it up. Oh, hang on. Don't look. It wasn't sorted. That one doesn't count. Hang on. Okay. There we go. Let's just shuffle these names because we don't want them to be in any particular order. Okay, it is spinning away. Let's see. All right, so Kelly is our winner. Is Kelly still on? Must be present when she is. Great. Well, congratulations, Kelly. We will connect to get you your $50 e-gift card, and we really appreciate everyone joining. I'll turn it back to Laura so we can get any questions answered, but truly, thank you so much.
Yes. Does anyone have any questions or want to talk about like maybe their fun plans? If not, that's okay. Not seeing too many, but that's all right. We're good. Well, hopefully this presentation kind of allowed you to kind of think about your retirement in different kind of categories, or maybe in a different light than when you do think of retirement going forward. My fun plan is to retire comfortably. I love that. Yes, we want to retire comfortably, whatever that may look like for each of us. Perfect. Love it. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. I'll hand it back over to Pamela to kind of wrap us up for the evening. But thanks again, y'all, for.
Thank you so much. I think, is Laura kind of frozen? Well, at any rate, we thank you very much for joining us this evening. And please come in next week we have our final webinar on Medicare basics. It's a presentation by Roma Costanza, who is a Medicare specialist in our area. She will review Medicare eligibility, enrollment, costs, benefits of Medicare, as well as an explanation of the differences between Medigap and Medicare Advantage plans. So that will wrap us up. Keep us in mind if you haven't been able to tune in to these presentations live. You can do this you can go in and listen to, go into our website and our name and YouTube as well. So you can listen to all these going forward. So unless you all have any other questions, Bree, did you want to say anything more before we sign off and give it over to Jared?
Nothing other than just truly thank you for joining. Thank you for taking this time to invest in your own future and in your retirement. We just cannot thank you enough for joining us for these sessions.
That's great. And there will be a survey. Jared will mention about it. So please give us your feedback, and please consider coming next week. Even if you know all about Medicare and you've gone through it, you can never know too much about Medicare. I'm telling you, you can never know too much. So anyway, Jared, it's all yours.
Thank you, Pamela, and thank you to the team at Int Credit Union for giving us that amazing information that I think all of us, no matter what age we're at, can definitely find incredibly helpful. As Pamela mentioned, this is the 7th session of our 8-part series, and we'll have it available for on-demand viewing starting tomorrow afternoon. If you missed any of our earlier sessions, you can also view those on our website, ppacg.org/reframing retirement. We will be back next week for our final one. As Pamela mentioned, we have Roma, who is the Medicare guru. Everything you want to know about Medicare, bring your questions. She will be happy to answer them. She does a fantastic presentation, and I've seen it several times and always learn something new. There will be a survey, as Pamela mentioned, that we'll be sending out here momentarily, and we greatly appreciate your feedback on your thoughts for this webinar. Thank you again for attending, and have a great rest of the day.